Be here now. Just be here now.
Hello, and welcome again, friends, to the Creativity, Spirituality, and Making a Buck podcast on the Be Here Now Network with David Nichtern. My name is Michael Kammers. Welcome, and we sincerely hope this episode finds you as well as can be. This is a continuation on our What the Heck is Mindfulness series, and our topic today is mindfulness and strong emotions. Welcome, David.
Thank you again, Michael. We're back. So, not a completely tangential thought, but maybe somewhat you mentioned the word well. It's in welcome, wellness. And it's the same word when you say, I hope you're well, which is what you said. You said, I hope you're well as can be, which is, I guess, considering that there are obstacles, we want to optimize our wellness, but we're not going to expect for perfection all the time. But also that the word well, I thought, is where you get your water from. It's you go deeper into a well. You penetrate into the earth, and water comes up from the earth, and you drink it. And that's the same word as wellness. And today's topic, we're talking about mindfulness and strong emotions, which is an absolutely important topic for anybody who's practicing meditation, to develop some kind of perspective about what you do with emotions when you're doing your meditation practice, or what you call emotions. So, and actually there are different perspectives on this. So I just want to explore the range of it a little bit. On the one extreme, the instruction is just when you notice that you're thinking, right? You are sitting and following your breath. Breath, nice feeling, breath. And you allow your mind to sort of clear a little bit. And then some distracting thought arises like, oh, I wonder if I should have lunch today, or skip it and just go straight. I had a pretty substantial breakfast, good high protein, been getting into those Beyond sausage patties lately, Beyond beef. Wow, what a franchise. Wish I had a piece of stock in that when they were first getting started. And I had with egg and some avocado, nice, good quality fats in the avocado. Michael had some in his shake that he was drinking in the last podcast we did, and we were talking about putting avocado in. And then he mentioned that he had bananas and blueberries, and I realized that he's sneaking sugar into his health regime, trying to look real healthy and green, and it's all glucose. And then I'm thinking, well, I had a pretty big breakfast. Oh yeah, what was I thinking about? I was thinking about my breakfast.
David.
Oh wait, what, Mike? What happened? Oh, thinking. Back to the breath. And whether we like it or not, that's what we call meditation. We might have a dream that there's some way to stabilize, to clear the space from any kind of thought patterns or processes. But quite frankly, our approach that we've been taught, that we've learned, is not based on trying to suppress thoughts. Now, that's easy to see. A thought is just like you just interrupted me, and well, there wasn't anything that important in what I was thinking there. You can see that it was kind of just rambling, and now I'm back. There's this sort of texture in the presence that's very strong, very compelling in a way, almost too strong, too bright, too brilliant. But it's something to explore. But what if I have a series of thoughts like this? I'm too fat. I'm eating all this healthy stuff, and then at night when nobody's looking, I'm getting a bag of chips out. I'm stuffing my face with chips and hummus, and then I'm eating an entire Who bar, paleo chocolate, all the same, but I ate the whole bar. And then I have to admit it, I did have some gelato. And underlying this is a terribly needy upset person that I've become during this pandemic. I'm frightened. I'm scared. I'm uptight. I'm worried about the future. Oh, thinking, well, that's a different thing, isn't it? The texture of that is different because there's feelings involved. So classically, what we say, as you know, Mike, in our way of teaching meditation, we say, just acknowledge the feelings. You can feel the feelings, let them be as they are, but cut into the narrative, the discursive part, the storyline. Just don't get carried away with the storyline. So you might just actually sense the feeling as a pure energy or a, simpler direct experience. Some people would say, no. Just cut through, go back to the breath. Don't have any texture to it. Don't have any exploration, any curiosity about feelings. So that's a good debate, that people have about what meditation is and what it isn't. The part of the debate we take is that the feelings are important, as are the thoughts, for you to just see them more clearly as they are without kind of getting down, as we say, down the rabbit hole with them, right? So there's a lot to say about feelings and whether or not we are using our meditation practice as a way of bypassing our feelings has become a big issue in the West, and a good issue called spiritual bypassing. Are we using this practice as a way to quiet, repress, silence important feelings that we really might need to pay closer attention to because they're inviting us to have a more intimate relationship with our world and ourselves?
Well, how could we tell the difference then?
Between what and what?
Well, if we're a practitioner, right? And so what you just laid out was, are we repressing our feelings in meditation, or are we becoming more familiar with them, right? Because that's kind of a salient difference. And our broad definition of meditation in our lineage is to become familiar with, right? We see things as they are.
Gom, the Tibetan word gom, G-O-M, to become familiar. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and then, of course, there's another second tier question, which is, how much are we just trying to do what somebody else told us to do by doing our practice? And how much of it are we using that as a pivot to just genuinely explore our own experience? How much are we trying to be a good boy or girl or a non-binary person or whatever, however you conceive of your identity, which is not critical in this case because we're still conceiving of having an identity of some form. And it's also questionable whether a Buddha even thinks in terms of self-identification and the importance of that. So maybe that's another good topic, and we can explore the notion of identity further from a Buddhist perspective. So the question is, are we just blindly following instructions and noticing, well, I found a good teacher and they gave me good instructions and I followed them and I got where I was going. I didn't really second guess it or say, I asked, how do you get to Rome? The person told me, go left here, right there, straight. And I just followed the instructions. And now I'm in Rome. Or is the point that we process those instructions through the lens of our own experience? And what do we do when there's a cognitive dissonance between the instructions we received and our own intelligence? How's that for another podcast?
I'm going to write these down. Yeah, of the two witnesses.
Yeah, well, that's what they say at that level, but they don't necessarily say that at every level.
Yeah.
So, and that's another. We're going to have a talk, actually, in our free webinar series. That's going to be the third Wednesday of every month. Dharma Moon is going to have a free webinar. And the first one is going to may have already passed by the time this is published, but it would be January 19th with Duncan Trussell on mindfulness and the cosmic joke. There's always going to be a mindfulness and peace. And then on February 16th with Krishna, mindfulness and devotion. And all year long, we're going to do mindfulness and something to juxtapose mindfulness with a particular something. Does it go well with it? Does it not go well with it?
And if you are listening to this after these dates, you can check out everything that we have going on and all of our offerings at dharmamoon.com.
God's bless you, Michael. Yeah, I mean, fortunately, both of us being from the entertainment business, we know how to, skillfully, gracefully, somewhat invisibly, but yet impeccably plant a plug in the middle of a seemingly innocent discourse.
I wonder what kind of strong emotions our listeners are feeling after being duped.
Well, that is an interesting strong emotion, like the feeling of being duped or taken for a ride stimulates a lot of strong emotions these days. A lot of people feel, that they've been duped or abused or put upon. That's another topic for that. You could say the real topic for this David's View session is we uncovering topics for future ones. We have a whole session of that, which is equivalent, Michael, of when people go to a restaurant. You ever notice this? And then they just talk about all the other restaurants that they've been to lately.
Oh man, yeah.
But actually, you're in a restaurant right now eating. Say, I had to,
Okay, yeah. Well, we can relate that to our emotions, right? Because we're experiencing an emotion in the present, right? And that's like being at a restaurant. And then we have all these stories about all these other restaurants, all these other things that have happened. We're solidifying this narrative about this restaurant's the best, this restaurant's the worst. I didn't have good service here. They rolled the red carpet out for me here. And all the time you have a meal right under your nose.
Yeah, I mean, which raises a question of emotions don't really seem to be, they have two aspects. One is they are in the present. Like if you feel jealous, it's like very strong present feeling. And it's got a lot of physical corollaries and narrative that's going along with it, and a kind of intensity of energy. It's got the body level, it's got the energy level, and it's got the kind of narrative level. But how much of that is only based on comparative to past and future circumstances? And if you take out the narrative of the past and the future and just experience what it feels like to be jealous, my personal take is it would be completely liberating. But that's a very avant-garde from a kind of, Theravadan or Hinayana Buddhist perspective, which the emotions are poisonous. I mean, when you hear a lot of Buddhist teachers, they talk about it like negative emotions. Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama talks about negative emotions, and they've even mapped them out. I saw in a film he has some scientists working to map them out. But are emotions negative in their intrinsic energetic quality? I don't know. Have you ever been really angry? Is it negative?
I mean, I like to keep these conversations to what's happening right now, but somebody completely go against everything we're talking about. One of your colleagues and friends, Susan Piver, I heard on another podcast, and she laid out the 3 yana view, right? So Tibetan Buddhism, there's a progressing of views from the Hinayana, the Mahayana, to the Vajrayana, and she put it very succinctly in a way that really landed with me. So I'm going to share it. On the Hinayana level, they're afflictive. On the Mahayana level, they're a bridge to compassion. And on the Vajrayana level, they're wisdom.
Well, that's a very, concise, maybe potentially very helpful way to look at it. And, but in terms of us as a group of gathering here in this cyberspace, and we are practicing meditation, I don't think anybody would really be that interested in what we're talking about if they didn't practice some kind of meditation, because it's like talking about fishing. You don't even have a pole. Like, why would you go to a website that's talking about fishing if you didn't have a pole? So what happens to us when we're sitting, and what would be a clear instruction or a clear parameter? How do we work with a feeling of jealousy that arises? And we can recognize, wow, I'm not experiencing that now. You cannot be experiencing the causality of emotions on a cushion because nothing's happening.
Yet they arise.
Nobody is making love to somebody else. There is no food which is delicious and beautiful. There is nobody to punch. There is, if you're angry, nothing is happening on the cushion. That's
Well, there could be somebody sitting right next to you. It would be very unkind just to punch them.
Well, that's really a funny idea. That's good New York, a good New Yorker cartoon. Two guys are meditating, or two people are meditating next to each other, and one of them, that's the first frame. Second frame is, one reaches over and punches the other, and the third frame, the other one says, "What'd you do that for?" And the fourth one says, "I told you to shut up already."
So, okay, if we're meditating,
in my mind, stop sneezing, or stop blowing your nose or something like that. It's just
there's a difference between meditation and post-meditation, right? So, there's a distinction in our practice there, because when we're in the world, we're acting, we're in the field, we're in motion, right? So if we're talking about meditating, the slogan that we use is touch and go, right?
Yeah. What does that mean? How do you do that?
You're meditating, you're in your seat, a strong emotion arises. Like you were saying, generally there's a whole narrative along with it. And at some point, you magically notice you're thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, you see, you touch, right? So you touch the emotion, you label the thought thinking, and you return your attention to the breath.
Yeah. So a little aside, but the reason I'm smiling right now is because I go, well, after I'm dead, if somebody wants to learn how to do mindfulness meditation, they could come see Michael.
Oh, in our first session, you said you're going to have to pass this forward. And I was terrified.
We all were. If we were smart, we were. Yeah, there's emotion. For example, there's an emotion. There's poignancy, there's sadness, there's tenderness, there's appreciation, there's love, there's sympathy, empathy. If you see a beautiful young child playing, like I get on Instagram pictures of my granddaughter Izzy, just having a blast, learning something new. That's emotional. If we're going to take the approach that those kind of feelings don't have a place in being a human being, if you're like a Buddhist, I don't know. I have a hard time. Now, if they get sticky and you get defensive about them, or you get stuck with them or something, is a different story. But having feelings, I'm going to go on the record as saying, I'm going to go with Susan Piver's definition. It is wisdom, actually. Emotions are wisdom. Now, our relationship to them is another story.
Well, I think one of the really powerful frameworks of mindfulness, and this is good for our what the heck is mindfulness, is passion, aggression, and ignorance. Now, the Buddha Dharma, gets so expansive on this topic, but just very simply, how do we usually relate to things? We grasp, we push away, or more, right? So if we're working with our meditation and we're working with our emotions, and in meditation or post-meditation, if we're a mindfulness practitioner, we are sort of unwinding that habitual conditioned response of grasping, repressing, and ignoring. And that is a profound portal to walk through of transmutation from affliction to wisdom.
Yeah. So you're saying there's a graduation or transition. If you don't have those, and that's just like, Trungpa Rinpoche saying that those kleshas are the manure of Bodhi, the fertilizer. If you didn't have them, there's really nothing to talk about, actually. The whole conversation becomes kind of useless, like it's too idealized. But now you have, and this is really, here's what comes to mind right away in post-meditation. One of my previous partners in life had the miraculous capacity. We would go to a movie theater, and without exception, there would be somebody in the row behind us who would sit directly behind her and kick her chair. It was like, how some people can magnetize different types of experience. And this is such a good experience for a Buddhist to have, because without somebody kicking on your chair, this doesn't mean much, all this. It really comes into play when you see how somebody responds to somebody kicking their chair in a movie theater. You go, ah. And you then transmute the passion, aggression, and ignorance into, pacifying, enriching, magnetizing, and destroying actions. They flip. So the ignorance becomes pacifying. You go, let's just create some space here. Let's not worry about this. Let's move if we need to. Why don't we move over? You can kick that chair by yourself. The enriching, I realized the person behind her had a cough, and I had some cough drops, and I just reached behind and I said, would you like a couple of these? And so you're making friends with somebody or something like that. It's harder for them to kick you when we're friends. You don't kick your friends usually that easily. And then, the magnetizing is including and, allowing some kind of harmony to develop. The destroying is, I hate to say it, the klesha version of destroying is if you don't stop kicking my partner's chair here, I'm going to kick yours, you just get, that would be the neurotic pattern of it. How could you cut through that, is, I think, the biggest art form of the day, conflict resolution. If there was a genius on earth right now, and there are geniuses in music, there are geniuses in art, I don't know if there are geniuses in leadership. It's harder to find somebody like a, kind of leadership principles are at a genius level. How could we do conflict resolution? Like, we're not going to just new age our way out of conflict. That doesn't work. So what do we do with that energy of aggression? I think particularly aggression. And maybe greed has come right behind it. So aggression and greed, if somebody wanted to do a very modern Buddhist practicum, I'd say, how do we work with aggression and greed in everyday life? That's a good one for it. And that's our final podcast for this.
We're continuing our theme. So thank you, everybody. And tune back in again for the genius of leadership. How do we work with aggression and greed? What is identity in Buddhism? And do you remember any of the other ones? I wish I could call them all back to wrap the
Wow. Well, you got the recording. So, but that's those three. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So let's pull them out. And if any of you are listening, we see your comments on YouTube, right? Don't we see the comments?
Yes, we do. Mm-hmm.
Write in. Let us know what you're thinking and what would be helpful for you to have us, talk about and jump into the conversation. Great. Okay.
Thank you, David, and thank you, everyone. There you have it, folks. Another episode of What the Heck is Mindfulness? On David's view on creativity, spirituality, and making a buck. Our little nesting doll of podcasts. And as you heard in this episode, we have many more podcasts to deliver to you. And we sincerely hope that they are a benefit and they help you deepen your understanding and practice, not by taking our word for it, but by contemplating what we say and mixing it with your own experience and seeing if it holds up for you. David mentioned some events during the podcast on our Dharma Moon platform, and like we mentioned, they have passed. However, this should be coming out the same day as Pete Holmes joins us on the 27th. So go to dharmamoon.com to check out all of our upcoming events because we'd love for you to join us. And as we said at the end of this podcast, If anybody has any suggestions for something for David and I to discuss related to Dharma, mindfulness, and everyday life, please shoot me an email at michaelk@dharmamoon.com. Leave a message on one of our YouTube videos. I will very likely see it. I'm not always checking the comments on our old YouTube videos, but I do pop in to check them out. And if you would like to hear more podcasts with David and I, head over to BeHereNowNetwork.com/David. And if you would just like to hear more amazing podcasts on the Be Here Now Network, just head to BeHereNowNetwork.com. Such an amazing resource and repository of human wisdom where you can engage with it free of charge. So we would very much like to thank the Be Here Now Network and everyone working there, JR, Sarah, Corey, for all their help in putting this podcast together and getting the word out. So thank you. And to all of our listeners, please continue supporting the Be Here Now Network. And to conclude on a personal note, I would just like to reiterate that we all hope everyone who's listening is doing as well as can be. It was particularly poignant listening to the intro of this podcast today. Listening back, we recorded this one in January, so this was well before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and things continue to unfold on planet Earth with many crises and disruptions that we are all facing and great tolls of human suffering. But within those, we can cultivate a sense of mindfulness and resilience individually and hopefully collectively and systemically for less suffering and oppression in the world. So just sending out good well wishes to everyone, wherever you may be. We sincerely hope that you are as well as can be. I don't know how else to frame it. May you be safe, healthy, and happy, and at ease. All the best.